6 months ago, John, is my husband, was diagnosed with a lung cancer. They said it was inoperable. It was in the middle of his chest, and they basically offered some chemotherapy and some radiation, which he did. My initial reaction was get juicing. And so for, I think, about 6 weeks before he started on his conventional treatment, he began on the juices. And he just loved the juices. And and he had actually suffered from a few, other things like pancreatitis and things that had undermined his health over the previous 3 years. So he was lacking, I'm sure, in some nutrients. And anyway, so he began the juice, and sometimes even 2 litres of juice a day for a good 6 weeks. And later on, when I looked at integrative oncology sites, a lot of them said it's really important to prep your body before you have conventional treatments, which are incredibly harsh. Yes, they do have their benefits, but they take a lot out of you, a lot out of your body's integrity. It's great to prep up even before you had an operation, say. Prep up before. If you know you've got something big coming up, we plan a trip, we do all this stuff. Well, same with the body. So get the bits in. So then now it's 6 months later, and there was a couple of nodes involved with the cancer. They have disappeared completely. At this stage, look, we're still a little bit in the dark because John's bloods are good, his energy is good. They haven't had a definitive look of where the tumour is at. But as I said, there's all these other signs that are really good, like he's eating, he's put on 11 kilos. This is since the last 3 months or so, since ceasing the conventional treatment, and keeping on going with the juices. And so we're just sort of going with it and following the traditional sort of patterns of recuperation, so lots of rest and things like that. Also, we've used things like lots of visualization, all kinds of stuff, sound bowls, you name it, people chanting and praying and whatever it takes. And people are incredibly generous and kind and well wishes and all of that stuff. It's all part of the journey. So yeah. So what's it taste like, John?
What? Poisoned.
No. just good idea for the dosage to sort of probably ideal would be 4 amounts, a bit like antibiotics, so it's 4 times a day that you would have a cupful, and that way your body's, it's trickling in. It's just trickling in, so there's always something there. Especially good if you're not feeling hungry enough, you haven't got a real appetite. This will keep your blood sugar stable, and eventually it stimulates the appetite. But we'll get you through a time when you haven't got much appetite, because it's got all the, you'll see, there's certain additives in there that'll, it's quite like a bit like blood, I think. Looks like blood. Sort of strange blood. The next stage is some herb ID, and in this case it's not your cultivated herbs, it's actually the herbs that grow around us that I've been particularly interested in. So we just sort of look at that and it just looks like a big weedy problem here, but no, it's herbs. So for instance, if we look down in here, what we have just growing here is a dandelion in here. So here's the dandelion. So that is tente de lion, the lion's teeth. Has the yellow flower. Can be, here's a flower. Can be a little confused with catweed. We'll talk about that. So that's just your normal dandelion. So with this daily juice, about 2 or 3 2 or 3 leaves. Look, it's you got to use your intuition here. So 2 or 3 leaves. What else have I got down here? We've got some. Well, it's a cultivated herb, but it's actually growing. I left things to self-seed, so we've got a little bit of lemon balm. So that's the lemon balm. I won't use all of that, but not just to give a bit of a look. I'll just use 2 or 3 leaves of that. Nice, growing out of this plant, and this is, a lot of these plants come up in spring, but because we've had an unusual dry period followed by rain and it's autumn, we're getting a lot of the spring herb weeds. So chickweed, which is a really great little weed, it's growing in amongst the, it'll just grow freely everywhere. So that's the chickweed. You can just eat it like it is. Got plenty of vitamins. You can make an ointment out of that. So I'll include a little bit of that in the gathering basket. Okay, anything else I can see? Plenty of dandelions in there. There is actually some wild rocket, because this is a rocket that has now thrown its seeds, and in the next coming months I'll have lots of little baby rockets. Okay. With a cancer diagnosis, lots of friends came with wonderful suggestions, and a nice lady came with a box of this guy. And this is called Herb Robert. It has germanium in it, and tiny little pink flower. Stinky Robert, they also call it. Quite pretty. And an amazing oxygenator. So this has the ability to bring a lot of oxygen into the system. And again, because we're sort of, what I aim to do with the herbs is kind of a homeopathic amount. So it's not to flood the body with huge quantities like you might with a carrot, because these are herbs and they're potent. So little amounts kind of often, with breaks every now and then. So Herb Robert is definitely one of the main healing herbs. Okay, now just follow me and we'll get to the next one. A traditional lung cancer herb is violets, and just happen to have lots of violets. Every part of the violet is useful. So the leaves, just a normal violet leaf, the little flowers, and the roots. So I've been using the leaves. So again, I'll do, 2 or 3. This is using your intuition. Go for the nice tender, always the tender, younger looking leaves. And something that I will talk about a bit later, and it brings in another vibrational aspect of herbs, is the flowers. So I do tend to use flowers, so I'll pick a couple of the violet flowers. Rosemary, another herb that I might not use every day, but occasionally I'll go, oh, put a bit of rosemary in. So today, a little bit, I've picked flowers and leaf, and as you can see, we've got lots of rosemary here. Plantain. It's another traditional lung herb. It will help, help you bring up mucus and coughs and Spitzwagen, it is in German. And this is a very common herb. It's also called white man's footprint because somehow it goes where we go. And this is it here. So there's a couple of, it's also called ribwort. So you can see it's got sort of ribby lines. Haven't got a flowering head at the moment, but they come up with a long spike. So again, we'll just do 2 or 3. All of these have lots of vitamin C, as well as herbs bring up from deep within the subsoils. That's why they're hard to get rid of, because they put down long roots, but what they do is bring up from the subsoil all minerals in particular. Okay, so here we have some New Zealand bush tucker, and I've been sort of partial to using anything that relates back to John's roots, and he's from New Zealand. So they call this puha, And you can see where I've been trimming. It's often cooked, and again, just going for those delicate little tips, and just a little bit. So that's the puha. So that's going in. Here's another thistle, different one to the puha. Probably something that people are familiar with. Best thing to do if you're interested in using herbs is get some herb books, look on the net, talk to herbalists, because part of what people need to be is confident that they have identified the right thing about using it. I'm confident because that's my, one of my hobbies. One of the things that goes in the juice every day is a lemon. And we don't use a whole lemon. Again, it's kind of your homeopathic usage. And I think part of the beauty of actually picking something and plopping it straight in the juice is it's teeming with life force. So the pranic energies, the chi, whatever you like to call it, if we had the eyesight, this would be overflowing with energy rather than a tablet in a bottle or something that you stored. If you're really stuck and you really haven't got anything, you can grow some wheatgrass, barley grass. That's something that 2 or 3 little tiny bundles a day will be cheap and also full of life force. Another wonderful, wonderful flower sort of herb, and that's nasturtium. So that's the nasturtium there, and it has an orange flower which you can also eat, and it's sort of a bit peppery. So I'll take 3 again. If you have access to flowers that haven't been sprayed, you can do some flower petals. And I have access to lots of different colours. So what do I feel like today? I might just do a few pink ones. Now, rose petals in particular have lots of good stuff in them. She's slightly past it, that one, but I don't feel like wrecking one of these gorgeous girls. Alright, now I think that's all on this side of the garden. Just for a little clarification, this here is often confused with dandelion, and that's cat's ear. It's not poisonous, so you can see where the confusion lies. So that's the true dandelion, and the dandelion, the tooth, whereas the catweed is very similar, but it's actually got a little hairy feel to it. Won't be able to see that, and the leaves there's nowhere near as cut in. Also has its herbal uses. Right, I think we just on the way back we'll grab. There is an old thing, and it's about tuning into the energy of the plant. It's kind of saying, well, thank you. And this one goes along the lines of herb, root, tree and flower, send to me your ancient power. So you're sort of really tuning in to the ancestry of the plant, and it helps. It all helps. So, 2 things here. I like to put in a little tip of mint from time to time. It's not an everyday one because my mint sort of is a bit scrappy there. And the other thing, when I've had a bit of basil, I put in maybe a bit of basil every couple of days. But I can't resist these, and they're the little pansies. So I actually have got these pansies, and pansies actually represent thoughts. So, and I just think they're just so amazing, and they're going in. So if you have a look there, I've got our little herbal basket. I'll lay them out and put them with their labels. Okay, we're starting back inside, and from the start, I just found after 6 months of juicing, I got a few little tips. I found a champion juicer, which we'll have a look at in a minute. That's the masticating kind. But, people don't like juicing because there's a bit of work. So I start with some water in a dish. Then I assemble my juicer. And if you notice, because we probably won't go to that, I actually keep this little thing in water overnight, because what I found was the turmeric in particular really clogged this up, and you can see the yellow colour. It's been stained by the turmeric, and for some reason it really clogged up. So toothbrush, water, but then I don't trust that, and I actually keep it in water. I just changed that. Wrong thing. So Champion Juicer. All juices are a bit different, but this is this one. So we'll just put it there. And at the end of it all, the water is so that I can just toss it all in. And I just found that it sort of keeps it a bit better. Less cleaning. Okay, so that's the masticator part. And that goes like that. Okay, it comes with a little thing here. And that's what comes out the other end. And I have a glass of water. Okay, I think what we will look at is, normally I will have them here, is just the herbs, just to follow up a little bit. Come over to here. So, oh, they're already looking a bit sad. It's only been a few minutes. So there's the dandelion, that's the tontilion, the herb Robert, the oxygenator. So just, I'm putting these names here just in case you want to go looking and you couldn't remember the name that went with them. The plantain, which is a traditional European lung herb, Spitzbergen. The puha, thistle. Little range of flowers here. So we've got the violets, pansy, a few rose petals, and calendula, which we didn't see out there, but it's also will self-seed very nicely in your gardens. A wonderful skin herb. It is a herb of the sun, and that's another thing to look at when you're doing herbs, is that all herbs are ruled by different planets. So if you're into that sort of thing, you know, there's always more to learn with herbs, another layer. So that's a sun herb, and they won't go in every day, but, you know, from time to time I mix and match the flowers. And the nasturtium. Now, the nasturtium's not always going to be available either. They die off in the hot summer. So you, with the herbs, you become seasonal, because these wild things grow with the season, and it all varies. Okay, now I'm going to go over here. I'll gather up my herbs. That's what I normally do. So I've got them in my basket. Gathered up my herbs. And we are chopping. Excuse me. I'll just get my knife. What do I do with my knife? Oh, here's my knife. Okay. So what are we using in here? So we have the standard carrots, apples, celery, beetroot. That's that beetroot. After chemotherapy, and radiation, and that's primarily why this particular herb juice formulation came about, is that you have too much fire in your system. And so in Chinese medicine, which I'm not an expert on, but, you know, I'm reading and learning all the time, pears in particular help to cool the system. Pears also have lots of carbohydrates, and so if you're not feeling hungry, they'll give you that energy. There are schools of thinking that don't like to mix fruit and veg, but when people are losing weight and they're really too unhealthy to eat, it's better to eat something if you can tolerate it. So the other thing is a little bit of lemon, just about that much. And then I will chop roughly celery, some kind of green. The kale's great. Usually I'll put a little apple in, just a small one. I like the pear actually to be really ripe. This is not as ripe as I really like, but, you know. So with the beetroot, that's a sort of small one. Yeah, put about that much in. Look, it's all a bit by feel and what you've got. Also, another beautiful cooling, for its cooling properties to the body, is a cucumber. You can give them all a bit of a wash and then start chopping and assembling. These are some beautiful organic carrots that I just got up at the market today. So I would probably use about that many per juice. I'll just stick what I'm not using in the back. Okay, normally I have some ginger, but I haven't got the ginger, but everyone knows what ginger root is. However, you may not know what this is. So this is turmeric. And let's cut in. Amazing, amazing colour. And we know it as a curry, you know, what we have in curries and Indian food. There's been over 5,000 papers published on turmeric and how it affects cancer just in the last 5 years or so. It is anti-inflammatory and also apparently can cut off blood supply to tumours. And as John pointed out one day, turmeric, yeah, so tends to clog up your juicer pretty well. So I've got a little trick I've learned after I put the turmeric through. I generally just pour a little bit of water through. You'll see me doing that. It just helps push things through the juicer. And also too, juice can, especially a juice like this that is a fortified juice, it really can have a fair bit of water in there. Just to make it easy on the tummy, it's best to swish juice around in your mouth a bit to help break it down a little. And it's fine to have extra water in your system. So I would always put at least 1 good cup of water in, maybe even more if you know, depends on how you tolerate it. Some people don't tolerate their juice as well. Okay, so I think we've got here, you know, like beetroot, broccoli is great. So a little bit of broccoli, doesn't have to be heaps. So we've got that basic juice, and now we'll make some noise, juice up, and then there's more. There is more. And the more has come about over time. So when I first started making this juice 6 months ago, I stuck to a pretty standard, you know, raw juice thing. But over time, and reading, I just found it easier to put everything in together and give it to John, and he was happy to drink it all together. So let's make some noise, and we will if we've got power. Okay. So this is a wonderful machine. It's 1/3 of a horsepower, and it was designed in 1954. The design hasn't changed. They're a little expensive. There's other ones, but it's a beast. So what I tend to do, I've found, is if you're using a lot of green herb, put your herb in and then a little bit of something hard on top to pull it through. So if leaves are getting wilted, something like this can clog the juicer a little. If you look down in there, you see all that lovely green is coming through. Just keep it going. Oh, yeah, that's good. Beetroots. Wonderful colour. Send our little pansy in. Plantain and rose. Now they don't like to go in. There. Now when I get that, time for a little bit of help with the water. A little bit of water, not too much, otherwise you're going to... Okay, now that bit of turmeric, look, you could probably use about that much. I sort of think about a fingerful, little fingerful. And if you've got your ginger, put that in. And I like to just run a little bit of water after that. And then these little random bits. Your lemon would plus the pith. It's good. And that bit might not fit. So we're getting all these amazing colours down in there. Hair. A little bit more water, and I just rinse whatever's in there and get those colours out and all the goodies. Now normally I would make a full container of that, and that's another reason the water's good for your hands. So there's our, if you can get in there and have a look at those colours. Just leave my juicer there. Wipe off your juicer if you're using the turmeric. Juicers are easier to kind of maintain if you don't let it, bits of fibre and everything grow. And I just chuck them in my water. Just a little messy. That's why you sort of, this is good. I've got a nice dedicated bench space because I'm doing this every day. And there is, just leave it in there, worry about that a bit later. So they're just all soaking, and you've ended up with some nice worm food, chook food. You could cook that up for your chooks or your pig, or worms love it because it's really chewed up. Okay, now we'll move that to there. We're going to move into the next stage. Spoon. Okay, so as I said, I started off with just a general juice mix, which you can't really tell, but sort of at the top you might be able to tell. You really got those, all those different colours and layers in there. So, how did this happen? I think we'll start first with this. This is a product that is not available in Australia, but you can get it off the internet from New Zealand. You get 30 in a packet, and that is lipospheric vitamin C, based on nanotechnology, so that the vitamin C is not being lost in the bowel. It tends to be absorbed from the stomach. And it is a little sachet, and it's a paste. Just get that. So that's 1,000 milligrams. I don't put it in every day, and when straight after chemo and different times, I might have put 2 or even 3 packets in, and it's a good stir. Okay. Look, vitamin C is a bit controversial because people say, oh, you lose a lot in the bowel and whatever. But that's the only one that I know of, this lipospheric vitamin C, that, if you just Google it, it'll come up from New Zealand. Okay, then I'll do a tiny little bit of bicarb soda, which is alkalizing, but just a pinch, or even less. Because all this is very alkalizing anyway. Next, red salt. A bit of intuition being used here. So, and really there is a bit of science behind it, because these are trace elements that we get from these coloured salts. And a lot of people say that illness happens because, we just may be lacking in one little trace element. So a little pinch of that. So we've got the bicarb, the salt, and then this product here, been on the market for a long time. That's the raw unfiltered apple cider vinegar. It's kind of, can heal everything. So again, just a little bit. It's probably a teaspoonful. When John came back, he was a little iron deficient, and I looked up, and organic molasses is a great way to get a little bit of reasonably easily absorbed iron into the system. Look, it's a bit tacky, and I don't use much. And again, it involves a lot of stirring. But after, it sits for a little while, it will dissolve off the spoon. Now, from time to time, and here again is that serendipity thing of, you use what the universe provides kind of thing. So just recently I've been given this local honey, all full of, bee pollen and wax and whatever. And, I might put a little tiny bit of that in. However, somebody arrived very kindly, gave us some bee pollen. And I wouldn't probably go out and buy that, but because it was a gift, a healing gift from a nice friend, I'll put a little bit of that in. Okay, so we've really now moved with the whole idea of another product that some people use is a maple syrup as well. It's really good to have a little bit of extra in there if you're really not feeling like eating. So we've really fortified this juice now. You can see that after a while the vitamin C, it really does require, I can feel it in the bottom there. I actually put this into a different jug, a stainless steel jug with higher sides. I'll top it up with some water, perhaps with some herbal tea like a blessed thistle for liver support, or some gotta-cola, whatever, with herbs you use your intuition. The other thing that probably one of the mainstays of this treatment in the last 6 months is a few courses of a black salve tablet. That doesn't go in the juice, so I just thought I'd throw it in because John has been taking that, and he suggested that people might like to. Another thing, it's a bit controversial. It's up to you. I'm just saying this is what we did. So far, so good. So, yeah. So, this one gets topped up with some extra fluid, goes into a jug, and then ideally taken 4 to 6 small cups if you're not feeling so good, over the whole day. So all day your body is sort of being washed with all these, everything's at this stage you just want to get better. The body intelligence goes, gimme, 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 and all of a sudden you've got nutrients. That's dense. That's very packed. So hopefully that helps you. Just giving all this information out as an offering of healing out there, and I hope it helps you.